Hello, everybody, and welcome to another tier list video on the Script Heroes podcast. We love doing these; they're a lot of fun. But pretty much the biggest one we've done, it was literally a two-part episode, was the most iconic deaths in comic book history. So we've decided to turn that a little bit on its head here with the most iconic comic book resurrections.
Yes.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're basically gonna talk about one specific issue to some extent of like the actual moment where they were resurrected is kind of what we're going for. And we'll talk about how we think of the resurrection kind of itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there are a few criteria that I read when I was doing this.
I'm
looking for the writing quality of like the actual resurrection, like how they buy in emotionally to the resurrection, stuff like that. I think that the portrayal of the resurrection, so like the art around it, is super important. Like if we have a scene where somebody is jolted back to life, what does that actually look like? That moment of like that quote unquote moment of impact. And then the third
I was thinking moment of resurrection is what I was
thinking. And then the third for me, the third big one, and this one is kind of a big one, is if there are mechanics going on with the resurrection, how do those mechanics work, and is it something that I like buy into and I'm happy to go along with as a resurrection?
Yeah, I kind of broke it down similarly into like method of resurrection, like how did they come back? Does that make sense? Am I okay with that?
And for some of those we won't have an answer for.
Then the moment of resurrection, which is the, you talked about it, kind of the impact moment of it. And then like mine was more of like the surrounding characters and story and like how it actually impacts that. Like, is it doing something good from a storytelling standpoint to the world and characters around it? Or are they just kind of resurrected in the middle of a story that isn't really actually about their resurrection? You know? That was kind of another thing that I was looking at.
Super fair.
Without further ado, do you want to start us off with probably the most iconic superhero resurrection of all time?
I think that is a fair beat to give it. And as it is so iconic, it is one of those ones where a lot of these resurrection happens kind of across various issues, where there's a lot of lead up to stuff. Superman was a hard one to nail down, but we're going with Action Comics number 689, The Resurrection of Superman. This is where he first appears in that black suit before it gets the S on the crest. But the Fortress of Solitude here has a regeneration matrix, which has brought Superman back from the dead. It like overcharges. He comes back, he's disoriented, but essentially pretty normal. He pretty much gets his feet under him immediately. He watches the news and is like, all right, I know what I must do. So for me, in terms of the mechanic of it, I think it is a little wild. So looking at the regeneration matrix, it's one of those things where, okay, did this exist before, you know? It's one of those things where, like, maybe if he had regularly used, like, the healing powers in the Fortress of Solitude, and then someone, like, cranked it up to 11, that'd be one thing.
Yeah, but I think that we've seen the resurrection suit, or the regeneration suit, the regeneration suit before.
Exactly. And the fact that he just comes back a little bit disoriented and isn't, like, super emotionally impacted by his own death is a little bit lame to me. I think that the highlight for me in this was the way that we saw Jimmy, Lois, Martha, and John living their lives without Superman. So I think that was the highlight for me, which is not my favorite thing for a regeneration or a resurrection. How did you feel about Superman's resurrection?
This is the actual way that I put this in my notes, whereas great ideas mid-execution. Because specifically, and I think we've seen it in a lot of like the redos of this story, it's like really good conceptually. Yes. Like the idea of world without the Superman, the black suit. Another thing is like this version of the black suit is so much worse than like every redo of it we've ever gotten. Because every redo of the black suit's like my favorite Superman suit, but this one just has like weird scrawling all over it for no
I do
reason.
like it in the little shield. I like the like kind of nebulous effect in the shield. But other than that, he has like the weird like pinstripes down his arms.
Yeah, and anything to break it up on the suit. Like a lot of the ones now give him like silver gauntlets, like cool stuff like that. but like I said, I think the characters around him are really cool. I like a lot of like this is one that I have the benefit of, like, I've read more of this
Right.
in the past, so I wasn't, blind to this issue. And I think it's definitely better when you're reading the whole issue, but it's definitely also an issue of the Death and Return of Superman that, like, everything is so stretched out
Yeah.
over like 4 Superman books every single month. But yeah, I quite like the moment of, like, all his robots around him as he
That's
resurrects.
fair. That's fair.
Really fun. So the moment itself, I kind of like, but I'm with you on, like, the method being just like that. It feels so much more Silver Age than the rest of the Death and Return of Superman story, where it's like, this thing you've never heard of that Superman has, yeah, he has it, know. But yeah, it is. I do think it needs some points from just being the most iconic new resurrection.
No, I think it definitely does get those points.
And it's not bad either. Like, you don't read this issue and go like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah, I think a kind of secret extra criteria that was pain at the back of my brain is also, like, how does it feel for them to come back? And with Superman, he wasn't gone very long. So, like,
no, what, year and a half, I think?
Something like that. If that? So, like, I think that also kicks it a little for me, where I'm like, okay, like, he was gone for a hot minute, but not, like, a long time.
I do love, though, that it's just all the, like, fake Superman running around.
Right? Like, that's so fun conceptually, like you said. But where on... Oh my gosh, we didn't go through our tiers.
Oh my god, we did. You do it right now. You run through the tiers right now.
Top of our tier list is An Act of God, which is the best way that you can be brought back and resurrected. The second one is Better Than Ever. The third is Welcome Back. The fourth is Welcome Back. The fifth is Here I Come to Wreck Your Day. And the final tier is Should Have Stayed Dead.
Yeah.
So Jay, of those 6 tiers, where would you put the resurrection of Superman?
Okay, here's my pitch, and you can push back. I feel like in a vacuum, I'd be like, welcome back, Superman. But I feel like with this being the most iconic resurrection ever, this bringing the black suit, so many big ideas, there's so much good stuff around it conceptually. I feel like it's got to be Better Than Ever.
I don't know. I hear your pitch, and I quite like where you started with the vacuum of Welcome Back. I feel like if he was gone longer, maybe I would give it more of that kind of, cultural impact credence. But to me, it's pretty solidly Welcome Back.
That's fair. We'll stick him there. I also think, like,
maybe
we'll see
he'll
where
lose,
things
but...
kind of shape around him. Yeah. But speaking of people who are dead much longer.
Yeah.
Do we want to jump to maybe the second most iconic comic book resurrection, second or third? I think there's one other character here that gets, like,
honestly, I kind of feel like it's up there with first and second. Like, I feel like 2 of them are tied for first, and then Superman is second for me.
Okay, that's fair. I think Superman just, like, as a resurrection is more, like, I don't know. I feel like the death and resurrection of Superman is just so ingrained. But I think the next 2, this and one other, I think are because they happen at the same fucking time, wildly. But anyway, this is Jason Todd. We picked the issue Batman Annual 25, which is the full issue dedicated to showing his resurrection. So we get our first one here that gets a whole issue for his resurrection. And this is the original way. So in case you're not familiar, pre-retcon, the way Jason Todd was brought back to life was by Superboy Prime punching the fabric of reality, which is wild comic book shit. But we then get what is maybe the actual sickest moment of resurrection that there is, where Jason has to claw his way out of the coffin using, like, his belt buckle and his bare fucking hands, and just literally crawls his way out of this grave. We then get a full issue of him going into a coma, coming out and not really knowing much about himself, then, like, encountering a street thug that he fought as Robin, and his instincts coming back, Talia kind of seeing and finding out about him and getting the League to take him in, but him still not being able to regain his memories after time, then her throwing him into the Lazarus pit. So why was that not just how he came back anyway, if you're going to do it anyway? But throwing him in the Lazarus pit, him kind of getting his memories back, and then him being set out on a vendetta against Bruce, and we get a line that I feel like I need to call out because I love it so much. You remain unavenged from Talia to
so
Jason.
in such good Talia writing. Like that's the dramatic like ethos of the All Ghouls.
Yeah, and before can I just say one thing before I toss this to you to talk about? This is the greatest comic book resurrection of all time. Like,
it really is.
Like I need to say that before I toss it to you.
Like, it truly is. I think that it definitely benefits from the retcon of not being Superboy punching reality. Though I did actually really like the effect of like his soul going back into him, essentially. So like visually, this is a cooler resurrection than what his resurrection normally is. Which is like big ups to it.
Yeah.
I also liked the logic of Superboy making reality what it's supposed to be, and Jason's not supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
And where he is in the universe is in a coffin, so like he's alive. I actually really liked that internal logic on it, weirdly.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
It's good wild comic book shit. Like, it's wild comic book shit, but it's like when you're like, it's one of those where it's like if you say it to anybody, it makes no fucking sense, but when you're reading it, you're like, no, this makes sense.
And like, I feel like if you take away the very literal Superboy punching the fabric of reality, it's like, oh, Superboy caused reality to shift into what it's supposed to be, and Jason's supposed to be alive. Like, I feel like once you get away from the, like, very technical bullshit of it, it makes a lot more sense. And I actually really and I thought that I was going to be a lot more judgmental on the, like, Superboy of it all, but I ended up quite liking that as, like, the instigating moment.
And it's
I
only
think
a couple pages here anyway, you know?
Exactly, yeah. I think this is a really easy act of God. Like, it definitely benefits from having the, like, whole issue dedicated to it. But it really is, like, it's all that and more. It's the resurrection of Jason Todd. Come on.
It's so good. It's just so good. But let's we don't want to spend 10 years on all of these, so we'll move into the next one.
This one I think is going to be easy to be quite quick with, because we have what becomes a bit of a sticky thing, where when it comes to those resurrections, it's so weird to pick when they're resurrected. This is the resurrection of Jean Grey. This is the actual resurrection of Jean, so not what's her name? It starts with an M. She ends up being the Goblin Queen. Not Madeline Pryor. Madeline Pryor is her name. Not Madeline Pryor being assembled by the Phoenix as a fake Jean, but this is actual Jean Grey. There's a cocoon at the bottom of the lake near JFK Airport, and the Avengers go. They initially think that they're fighting some other threat, but then they realize that there's some unknown psychic thing inside of this that's pushing them back. So we have Jean kind of telepathically pushing people away for this whole issue. And then they eventually manage to, I think it's Wasp who ends up getting through to her and convinces her that they're here to help, so they're able to extract the pod. And of course, once everybody leaves the room, we're like, oh, what is this mysterious pod? Then the pod goes transparent and she like murmurs Scott's name, and it's like, oh shit, it's Jean! Jay, how'd you feel about this one?
Yeah, the first thing I want to touch on is I actually really like that moment at the end.
Right?
I'm like, if you're not reading this with the hindsight that we have, like, if you were reading that month to month, that must have been sick.
Right?
Like, that reveal must have felt so freaking good. So it needs big points for that. That being said, a lot of this issue is X-Men getting, like, punted by a cocoon, which is...
The Avengers getting punted by a cocoon.
Sorry, you're right. The Avengers. It happens in an Avengers issue. That's also a thing that it happened in an Avengers issue, and I believe the follow-up issue is a Fantastic Four issue.
It is.
So, what the fuck? But yeah, a lot of this is the Avengers getting punted by a cocoon. Is weird. And it like feels somewhat like a product of its time. But I do really like the actual like reveal moment there. So I feel like I'm very like, I think this is a decent resurrection, all in all. Especially because it's not with the X-Men. Like, I feel like that's minus points too. Like, why is this happening with the Avengers? Like, that's a bad decision.
And I think that this is one of the few on here that has a really interesting angle on the resurrection, because there are a few on here where people have agency over their resurrection, and that's like a really cool thing to have going on. So like Jean specifically being like, no, go away. And it's like, you know, our knowledge as people who specifically picked out things to read that are resurrections. It's like, okay, we know that it's Jean in there. So it's actually a really cool point of tension with that knowledge to be like, oh my gosh, she's like, she doesn't want to be resurrected. She doesn't know that they're here to help. So I thought that was actually really effective for me. And I kind of liked that it wasn't the X-Men, because I feel like giving it to the Avengers lends a lot of kind of weight to the fact that she hadn't been found before, and they don't know who it is when they find her. And by the way, because I didn't say it at the top, this is in Avengers 263.
Yeah, but let me push back a little bit of like, it just feels so, and maybe at the time this was more reasonable than it is in modern times. It feels so much like, oh, you read all the Marvel books, you know, so we can put it wherever we want. Like, if you're an X-Men fan and you're not reading Avengers, this feels like a pretty sucky thing to miss out on because they decided to stick it in an Avengers book, you know?
That is very, very, very fair. Like, where would you stick this?
I feel this might annoy people. This is maybe one of the more like famous Marvel ones. I feel like this is welcome back. You know,
I like
it's a nice
that
moment
spot for it too.
Yeah, it's a nice moment, but it's not like, I don't know, nothing about it felt incredible. You know,
yeah, and it doesn't have like a moment of resurrection for us. Yeah. Like if we're looking at specifically like their resurrection, how it feels for them to resurrect, she's drawn out a bit. So it
and she's just like in the like, you know, like it's just.
It's banking a lot on like the coolness factor, which is why it got to welcome back, because she doesn't get to do a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot to another
Marvel woman.
Yeah, another Marvel woman. Our favorite Marvel woman, actually.
God bless.
Let's talk about Daredevil 190 and the resurrection of Elektra. Mm-hmm. We get another issue where pretty much the whole issue is really actually kind of around the resurrection here.
Yeah.
And we get this is basically about Daredevil, Stone, and Black Widow going kind of after the Hand, who have taken Elektra's body and are gonna try to bring her back with like, you know, hand mind washing to turn her into like their soldier. We get some nice flashbacks to how Elektra kind of went from one of Stick's ninjas to more of a bounty hunter. It's a very cool like flashback progression thing. Mm-hmm. And then we get like this big fight with the Hand, and we get this really like interesting angle where our heroes don't do a ton actually around her, except that Matt kind of gets enough time with her where he is able to, I guess, will away the mental control that they have over her.
I think that it was they emphasized a lot of like energy transfer stuff, so I think he was pushing the energy in, whatever you know, frou comic magic that means.
But he's basically able to remove whatever these mental blocks are, and or mental control is. So by the time she's resurrected, she's actually like off and on her own, and it's a really cool panel. You'll see it in the image that we have there of her actual resurrection at the end. But it's cool because she doesn't end up resurrected with the Hand or with Daredevil and you know, friends. She ends up resurrected on her own, off. It's just a really cool moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a really big part of this is this is another one where we have like a really cool angle coming towards the resurrection, where Daredevil at first doesn't want to resurrect her. He's like, no, I'm with you. We're gonna try to stop them from stealing her body. But then once I almost just called them the Foot. we have turtles on here too. But once the Hand successfully does it, like he hears a heartbeat and he's like, oh shit, no, she's back. Now I am flipping to the other side, and now it's kind of Stone on his own trying to stop these guys as Matt tries to.
Stone. He's such a
Stone
fun,
is so cool. And what I really wanted to emphasize with him is he's like so staunchly anti-reviving Elektra, but then he's the one who pushes it through in the end. And I thought that was an amazing character beat. Because this is one of those ones where you really do get it when the resurrection is kind of the point of the issue, where this was also just a really great issue of a comic book. It had a really wonderful like single issue arc going through it.
Yeah.
The way that Matt changes throughout the book, the way that he kind of grows, and the way that Stone especially finishes off a character arc, like sacrificing himself because he sees that Elektra can be good now. so great, and it had that amazing book ending with Elektra's journey to find
The
Stick.
climb.
Yeah, the climb was so good. I was like crying at the end. She is so cool. Everything about her is so rad.
Frank Miller and Klaus Janson on Daredevil is just gonna be good shit, and like when it's around Elektra, even more so a lot of the time. And it's a nice thing because we talked about how with her death, she doesn't really get to be much of it.
No.
And this is weird because she's also not like much of this, but I think a lot of because of the book ending of it feels so much more about her than her
exactly.
Death.
Yeah. And I straight up put this in Act of God.
I agree. Also, I just feel like we also kind of jumped over the fact that fucking Daredevil's willing to work with Kingpin to get information necessary to try to
super great. And Kingpin like harasses him with like we are the sources of power in this city, so we are partners. So cool. So great. Really just a great issue. And a phenomenal
worse than Jason though, I think. I said Jason's just the best. Jason's
it's gonna be impossible. Like unbury the lead, whatever. Jason's gonna be at the top of the list.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Like it is what it is.
Yes, but we're gonna continue on our Marvel run with Amazing X-Men #1. This is the resurrection of Nightcrawler, and this is another funky one. I love when there's like the really unique resurrections happening. So Nightcrawler is dead. We actually read his death, I think, in part 2 of the comic book deaths. And our boy is in heaven. Like, he did it. He's, like, so importantly, like, a man of God.
I love his heaven.
And he's, like, half devil, demon, whatever. And we open on him in heaven. He's in paradise. Yeah. And he can't stop looking back at, like, the edge of paradise, at like, the world that he left behind. And we see his dad come in and start to fuck with heaven, and instead of him resurrecting by going to the mortal world, he sends these little imps, these little bamfs, to build a portal to bring the mortal world to him so the X-Men can help him fight this. And in his little a good chunk of the book is not on him, but in that first chunk where he's there, he's like giving a summary of what happened kind of from above, clearly from the future. And he makes a comment about like, well, I didn't fall from heaven, I jumped. And that was so fucking rad. I was hooting.
And it's so nice with his powers, but I believe he calls his teleporting jumping, which is like such a nice little,
Super, super good. Jason Aaron, that man is so good at writing like really dramatic dialogue.
Yeah. And Nightcrawler is such a good character for that.
Boy. This is another one where we kind of have his first appearance after he died, and we don't have him like jumping back to the mortal world, which I think happens at the end of this first arc. He like gives up on being in heaven so he can help the X-Men. But we do get him, back alive again. How did you feel?
I think this works well as the resurrection issue, though. Yeah, it is like too. It's where I think a lot of the legwork is done. So, I like this quite a bit. It's an interesting, like, it's a very interesting portrayal of heaven in general because it's just like opens up a lot of like possibilities. Like, can anybody jump, or does it have to do with Nightcrawler's powers? Like what is the actual play there? And then like some of the stuff that's not on him is like not just from the sense it's not on him. I just don't think it's as strong in general.
Agreed.
But that's not necessarily the resurrection itself. But yeah, I quite like the portrayal of heaven. I think the way that he plays with the afterlife because of his strong religion is really, really cool for it. I also just love the visuals of him in heaven, like all the way around. It's so good. So yeah, I thought this was a very solid resurrection, especially because like I feel like in terms of the importance of a character resurrecting, this is probably the lowest, like in general of what we've gone through so far. So the fact that the book managed to make it feel really important, I think is a big up for it.
Yeah, and I think the end point of Nightcrawler choosing to leave heaven is really, really strong. Yeah. So where would you put it?
I'm between Better Than Ever and Welcome Back. Probably leaning. I don't know where I'm leaning. Right now,
I'm leaning Better Than Ever personally.
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to shake out when we have more. But for now, this is
having that agency over your own resurrection is like a really powerful thing for me.
It's cool. I like it. I think it's I'm not gonna ramble here. I'm not
Okay,
gonna ramble.
okay. We're gonna jump back over to our boys at DC. Jay, you want to
Yeah.
tell us about Robin Rises #1?
Robin Rises Alpha #1 important because I
Yes.
believe there's an Omega that is earlier in the storyline. Anyway, yeah. So I just completely lost my brain. So basically, we kind of open on Batman and his Robin Task Force. Is that what I should call it?
Yeah.
Which
Task
is a
Force
really
R.
cool Task Force R, which is a really cool vibe of Red Robin,
Red Hood and
Jason
Batgirl.
and Batgirl. Yeah, they're all Robins in this, so I didn't want to.
But also, none of them are Robins.
Yeah, I wanted to go for their actual names there, and I somehow stumbled on Jason's name for some reason, despite the fact we just talked about him. But yeah, that was a really cool beat, and then basically they get him back from hell. All of them are having this issue of like hell energy, especially it's in Batman's like hell. What's it called? It's not Hellbuster. His Hellbat. Thank you. His Hellbat armor, and it's kind of overloaded, but he manages to get out of it. He manages to revive Damian, and then
with like a shard of chaos.
Like, something
energy?
Like that. It's a wild visual. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then they get this great hug as well, which is the moment I chose for the image. That's also great. And then like Calabac comes at them, and we get like the task force standing off of them. Robin gets a good blow in to save Batman. It's a very nice, very nice moment there. I love Jason with like the fucking like bazooka too. It's
right.
Really cool. But yeah, this Katie, talk to us about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I feel that I must bring it up every single time because it's so like deeply important to me that they keep letting Dick miss big family moments. Like he's off at Spiral and this is happening, and I'm like, bullshit. Damian is dead. Dick is coming back for that. Like I understand why editorially, whatever, but like it's deeply upsetting to me that Dick is gone for this.
That he's not a part of the Robin task force.
Exactly. Especially because like that's his Robin.
Yeah.
That's his little brother. He loves him so much. But yeah, I think that this is one of the ones that has a really good emotional core. I think that a bit of a bummer is that a lot of Bruce's legwork in this, the one who does the resurrecting, is in the previous issues. Like I know that there's this really cool conflict where he has to choose between reviving his parents and reviving Damian. And like we get a hint of that here that helps with that. I think the real star of this is Alfred, actually, which I think is really great for Damian because Damian and Alfred's relationship is like so important to Damian as a character over the past like, I don't know, 10, 15 years. So like which is, a lot of Damian's existence. So like I think that the fact that they did that so well is really, really great. A lot of it is fun action. And I think that ties in really well to the aesthetics of the resurrection, that chaos shard going into Damian's chest. Really cool visual, really strong. I think that this is just another one that suffers a bit for me from being like, okay, how long was Damian dead?
Yes, I was gonna go there because that is, I think, one of the rough ones. Like this is one where it's like, did his death and resurrection really do anything? Like,
yeah. And like, I don't think Damian is really changed fundamentally as a result of his death, which is one of my big criticisms of some of these deaths, where it's like, okay, you died. That's like the most important thing that can happen to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's punctuated by despite the fact that Jason has barely moved since that beat. But the top two of our list right now were both very fundamentally changed by their death and resurrection, and I think that's that's an important thing. You fucking died.
Yeah, you fucking died. So I would personally put Damian. I would put him in the Welcome Back. I think that it has a lot of really strong visuals, but I think that it suffers a little bit from like the cultural importance of.
I agree. But do you want to jump back over to Marvel?
Yes.
With another one that we had the death of.
We're going to be talking about Fantastic Four #600, the resurrection. I was going to say regeneration. The resurrection of Johnny Storm. We read his death. He died trying to defend the gate between the world and like Bugville. I don't remember where it is. Is it like Annihilation?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
But the gate between the world and Annihilation's world, he died to save the Fantastic Four kids and Ben from that gate. He defended the gate while it got online. And we learn here that he actually didn't like he kind of rides off into battle, and we get a really good look at that battle. I think the title of the story within this is even called like whatever happened to Johnny Storm or something. And it's a really cool battle. We get to see him go Nova multiple times, which is rad. And then we learn that he's trapped in this kind of death fight
loop
die again cycle where he's being revived by these like creepy worms, which is weirdly not the only weird worm.
No, that was shocking to me because I read this first in this one, but obviously I know the other one. And I was like, what? Why was it done multiple times?
Why are magic worms fixing people in multiple books? But he's being like stitched back together by these when his body isn't burning them up. And then he gets to have like a cool kind of prison breakout thing to like defend the gate once and for all and come back to the world. But Jay, how did you feel about this resurrection?
Yeah, I'm gonna get off my two big gripes, and then I'm gonna talk about some of the cool stuff. Gripe number one is this is in the middle of an event thing, I think, and so
I think so too.
There's just a lot around it that makes it kind of rough for it to be Johnny's resurrection. You know, it's like, here's all this other stuff, and then here's your Johnny pocket, and then here's all this other stuff, and it's like, okay. The other thing is, I feel like, and you can push back on this if you disagree, I feel like from reading the death, I could have told you that this was kind of not necessarily the like cycle, but like the idea of he's riding into a final battle, he's not actually going to be dead, and he's going to come back. Like I feel like that was just very telegraphed by this type of final moment, and
this kind of like there was no body type of death.
Yeah. Like especially not just there's no body, but like the cutaway death. The like we're gonna cut away before you actually get to see them die. So that's my big gripe. Like you said, the battle scene and like him going Nova. That's why that's one of the images I chose was him going Nova. Like it's just sick. Like he has such good visual comic book powers, which is great. And I like a lot of the like Johnny moments in that, but it's I think as a resurrection, it's a weirder use of worms somehow. That's such a weird thing to say.
Actually, I'm going to disagree with that. I think the worms later on are weirder.
I should say more unexplained worms, maybe. I don't know.
That's fair.
I didn't buy the worms were a more I don't know.
A more convenient thing here.
Yeah. It was weird. The weird in the other place too, but different kind of weird. Like a plot weird here, where I was like, okay,
and like I feel like this one
that was necessary.
You also lose a little bit of oomph from his initial death when he goes through this like death and rebirth cycle a few times, and it's like, okay, I feel like now I'm less impressed that he came back.
Yeah, I think the vibe is so much of like, if we just did, he never died and he comes through, you're like, well, he didn't really sacrifice anything. And they're like, we're gonna put him through torturous hell so you know that he actually sacrificed because he kept dying.
But because the resurrection is so readily available, it feels more like he was kidnapped or something.
Yeah. It's the event thing makes it rough too. I'm gonna push for Here I Come to Wreck Your Day. I think I
can give it to Here I Come to Wreck Your Day. I think that it was the first reveal of it though. When Spider-Man opens the thing and Johnny's standing there, I think that was a really good resurrection reveal moment. And we'll have two more really good resurrection reveal moments.
Yeah.
But this was a really good one where he's like standing in the portal and he's got like the stick, and there's a really good moment, but not good enough to make his resurrection feel less cheap.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. Yeah, do you want to hold up a mirror, though, to Jason Todd and talk about the resurrection of Bucky Barnes in Captain America issue 11, which wildly came out at almost the exact same time.
Yeah.
Such a wild thing. But in any case, we get our second full issue dedicated to a resurrection, from the actual perspective of the person.
Yeah.
I guess not from his perspective, but focused on the person being
resurrected. They're kind of journal and entries and mission logs about him.
Yeah, I really like the mission report captions.
Right.
But we get these mission report captions that kind of detail him initially being recovered in the 50s and then being brainwashed. And actually, there's a really cool thing I want to talk about first of like where kind of conversely to Steve, he wasn't still alive when he was frozen.
Yeah.
He is de-thawed, and they go, well, he died, and somebody comes up with, well, yeah, but his body was still preserved like Steve's was, so why don't we try to, resuscitate him as if he had just died? I was like, that's so cool. That's such a cool. I really like the internal logic of that.
I also
despite the fact
really
that
like
no
the
real life
angle. I really like the angle of the Russians wanting Bucky's body because they think he has the super soldier serum.
Yeah, like
I
in
think
his
that
in
gave
his
a
veins.
really good like internal logic for that as well. For like why is Bucky so important?
But then basically, essentially, over time, they realize that the mind control is not really like fully. Sticking. I guess it's not brainwashing is the better term. It's not it's brainwashing. Isn't like fully sticking. He's starting to do weird things and he can't remember. So eventually, they make the decision to like only to put him in stasis and only take him out for missions.
Yeah,
and he eventually like has some issues where he really starts breaking out. So they decide to put him in stasis permanently, which will eventually lead into the modern day Winter Soldier storyline. But yeah, Katie, what'd you think about Captain America 11?
I think that this is a really well done resurrection. I think specifically in like with Jason's, it's a really tragic resurrection. Like seeing Jason go through all that really is horrifying. And Bucky's is too, but Bucky's is a little more heroic because, like you're saying, these brainwashing things aren't sticking. So you see these glimmers of Bucky being able to push through, and like I think that does a really good job for the redemption arc that Bucky would go on, essentially, where like he's the Winter Soldier for a while, but you're really laying the groundwork here for but Bucky can be saved, and I think that was really really awesome. Like it makes his stance in this story more tragic than it could have been if they were just like he woke up and now he's a Russian op. But there's all of this internal question of like how much of Bucky is still there, and that was like really emotional and really well done. And I think for a Captain America reader to see that part of Bucky as Winter Soldier and then seeing him have to fight Captain America, and so it's like, oh, that bit of Bucky is still there. He can reach him. He just hasn't been able to yet. Is really, really cool and really well done. And
I like you said, the actual like the tightest internal logic. Yeah, exactly. I just think it has like the tightest internal logic of all of them. Like it feels so good every step of the way as you're reading these. Like, I think that's part of it is because you get these like mission reports that like it's logical that these are explaining everything to you.
Yes,
and it's like, oh my god, this all makes sense. Like you said, like the reasoning why they did it made sense. The actual like thought of like, oh, let's not just have it be exactly like Steve. Let's have him have already been dead, so that the death of Bucky isn't like invalidated. So, like it's so well thought out on that level, and it makes it so much easier to buy into and enjoy.
We also get like it's really just the bookends there, but we get Steve reading these files, so you really get that emotional punch from it as well.
We got to talk about the flashback to them in the theater, and Bucky says to Steve like, without me, I think nobody would understand you. And then it flashes to the present when Steve is without him, and I'm like, oh my god,
emotional gut punch. Yeah, this is another act of God one. I was gonna say I think that it beats out Elektra just because it's like, it's got the history,
the only reason I think, in my opinion, Jason edges it out is because he has that sick actual moment of resurrection where he claws his way out of the freaking car, and it's like, sorry, that puts him on top.
That's just so objectively insanely cool. But next up on our list is
we have Wallace West.
Oh, that's Wally there. Hi, Wally. So this is from DC Rebirth #1. That's like the big kind of chunky boy that they let out ahead of Rebirth. If you want to hear our full thoughts on DC Rebirth #1, check out our tier list ranking all of the DC Rebirth #1s. We went literally all of the books that they released with Rebirth. But this is Wally's resurrection after he was retconned out of existence, and I love this. I think that this issue does such a good job with bringing Wally back. It's another one that has like really good like rationale behind it. Like he was lost in the Speed Force, and he's bringing the multiverse back, which brings himself back. Like I think that works really well here. It's like classic kind of Flash shenanigans. And we get really great emotions as he tries to contact people, as he tries to like
brutal.
find his place in this world. It's so brutal, but then the moment with Barry when he like, oh, what's his line? He's like, I can't believe I ever forgot you, or something like that.
Yeah,
it legitimately makes I like have goosebumps right now just thinking about it.
Which is when he like grabs his hand and literally pulls him out of the speed. I'm like, oh my god,
oh my god, it's so good. I absolutely love the resurrection of Wally West. How'd you feel?
It's so freaking good. It's so great that like the way that he's like going through it's one where he's like actively doing it.
Yeah.
What I have to throw out here.
Sure.
Because it's only somewhat in this issue, but I think it's a problem with the Wally West resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
They retcon what resurrected him like 3 times within a year and a half.
Yeah.
They could not decide what actually erased him from existence. And like multiple books being made basically at the same time gave different things. And it's just, that part's a mess. This issue, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Connecting with Barry, phenomenal. The way it ties into Batman, the world, him and Linda, tragic and heartbreaking. Like, it's so freaking good. But I feel like, in my opinion, it is knocked down by his method of resurrection being so all over the place and, nightmarish to pin down.
And I think another kind of dig at it is, like, obviously his relationship to Barry is the most important thing to his character, but we get a little bit of same hat going on than with Titans #1 when he's trying to, like, break through to the Titans. And so I think that the fact that he's not able to break through... I'm a biased woman. The fact that he's not able to break through to Dick is, like, I wish that it was like a little tighter. Like,
I think the reasoning is like the only reason Barry can is because of the Speed Force.
Speed Force, sure.
Yeah.
But I do think that it maybe draws out a little bit as he's...
Especially because Barry created the Flashpoint, and I think the idea is usually that Barry's supposed to be able to remember things from timelines that he,
that's
fucked
fair.
up. And again, they changed whether or not Barry actually had anything to do with this multiple times. So who the fuck actually knows what's going on? But
so it comes to a really great conclusion, but it does.
Also, he never died. Like, I feel like that hurts too. Like, they just fucking said no. They just said no more Wally.
I think it deeply counts as a death to be retconned out of existence.
It's rough from an in-universe thing where they're like, we just pretended he never existed, but now because we fucked up so bad, we need to do a whole story about him coming back.
But in any case, I would I don't remember who delivered this one, but I would put this one in either better than ever, Act of God. I think
it's better than ever
makes
I think it's better than ever. Again, because we have talked about the fact that the way you were resurrected matters, and I feel like his is a mess.
It's definitely a mess. But are you ready for our only non-Big 2 title here?
I am, because it's one of my favorite fucking comic book issues ever. So we're gonna talk about TMNT issue 21 and the
Return
resurrection
of the Worms
of Shredder. So basically, this is one of those ones where it really does flow right in from the previous issue. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit rough when you're just reading this, but essentially the Turtles are after these like Shredder clones, which are freaking hilarious.
Yes.
There's a tiny one, there's one with 4 arms. They're very, very funny. They're able to cut off one's arm and you see worms coming out of it. That's your like little precursor. Raph runs off on like this solo mission to get Shredder, amazingly in character. He ends up coming up across the Elite Guard. Leo catches up to him. They take down the Elite Guard. And then there's what is one of my favorite moments where like Raph has this realization of like, oh no, Leo's the one who's going to take down Shredder. And it's a great moment. And basically Leo has a one-on-one with Shredder, who is alive, and he gives the explanation that they have these special worms.
This was chosen as because we've got the method of resurrection here.
Yeah. So these worms are able to eat flesh and then like
copy that cell structure
out of, which is wild, but they did whatever the hell they wanted in the Mirage Turtle books, and it's hilarious.
Points for creativity on those worms.
Oh yeah, it's so funny. And then we get what is maybe the most iconic fight scene in all of Turtles, where Leo fights Shredder, decapitates him in maybe the most iconic TMNT panel of all time, and then we get this awesome thing where they like just burn the body because they're like, we're not letting that fucking happen again. So yeah, this is the resurrection of Shredder. I'm a big TMNT fan, so obviously this is but I'm interested to hear, as somebody who you did read the death of Shredder in our deaths video. For somebody who hasn't read Fall of Mirage, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the resurrection.
I think this resurrection suffers from one very unique difference from all the other ones on our list here, and that's that it's the resurrection of a villain.
Of a villain, yeah.
And that it immediately is a little tougher, because unless that villain is going to, like, stick around for a long while, it feels a little, back and forth. Like, okay, they're back only to be defeated again. So it doesn't have that same kind of grit as a hero coming back, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair. That tracks.
Yeah. And so it does suffer from that a bit for me. And as cool as this issue is, because it's really gorgeous, the amount of panels they're packing in the pages here is really amazing. It's
what a lad.
A little tricky, because this is another one of those ones where we're not really on the resurrection here. Like, it's where we get the explanation of the resurrection.
Yeah. It's a backtrack thing. This is how it happened.
Yeah. So I think it suffers a little bit from that as well. So looking at this from from a resurrection point of view, a lot of what we're getting here is he's back, but he's killed again, and how he came back, as opposed to like the kind of immediate impact of him being back. Like, we're coming in.
The one thing I want to throw on the immediate impact of him coming back is I love all his talk about how he can't be killed after, like that. It's just such a great. It's such great villain beats of him being like, "You killed me, but I'm still fucking here. You can't fucking kill me." I really love that interaction. And Shredder, it does, fucking intimidating as hell villain.
It also comes, I think, full circle around on the like internal mechanic problem, where like you start from a point of like, okay, this makes sense. I see where this is coming from. Oh, it makes less sense, yada, yada, yada. But then you come back around to like, oh, this is Buck Wild in a way that I am fully bought into.
Yeah.
So the adult magic cloning worms really...
It's such a wild thing. Like, there's no... Like, you'd think, like, the Turtles thing is, like, ooze or something. Like, you'd think that they would, like, go to a Turtles thing. They just went, like, magic fucking worms.
Magic worms, dude. So I would say that I think that this resurrection is not an act of God.
No, certainly not.
The reason that I felt the need to disclaim that specifically is because I think that if we were saying, like, if we were, like, reviewing the issues...
Oh, if we were reviewing the issue, it's one of, like... it's probably, really, like, really second only to some of the first couple issues and, like, my favorite TMNT issues of all time. Yeah. Fantastic issue.
So I just wanted to make sure that I tossed that out there first.
No, that's very fair.
Because your opinions on the Turtles are very clear. So I wanted to make sure mine on this as well. I feel like in terms of resurrection, it's a little short-lived. Like, he died in, what, issue 1 or 2?
He dies in issue 1.
Issue 1, right? Yeah.
This was really, like, I don't know if you've ever, like, I don't know how you read it, but in the, like, if you read it after this was really, literally them being like, we have to bring him back, because we'll show it. This is our he's dead for good this time, stop asking us about it issue.
Yeah, and because he's, like, kind of just here and gone again, for at least for me, I kind of want to give him an welcome back.
I wanted to give him the full welcome back. I see where you're coming from, though, and as the more objective one here, I will give it to
we can put him at the very top, though.
Yeah.
Like, he gets points for this being a part of an amazing issue. And maybe if I had read the entire, arc of Return to New York, so it's like a 3-parter, right?
Yeah. It really only leads, like, the lead is basically, like, the clones in the previous issue. So, like, you don't get much else kind of the, like, literal resurrection of Shredder. Like, that's not, like, how it worked. Like, that's not just... There wasn't... You're not... On the resurrection of Shredder himself, you're not really missing.
Okay. So I think that is unfortunately a little rough. But are we ready to go back to Marvel and talk about Astonishing X-Men number 4? This is the Resurrection of Colossus.
Hit me with it.
So we don't get a lot of information on the resurrection of Colossus in this. The
No, not at
X-Men
all.
are in the middle of a fight, and he appears. Like it's very like this is very much like a reveal issue as opposed to a resurrection issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like this is another one where I'm like, oh, this is a really good like reveal moment. Like the one with Johnny, and then this one where he's like standing in the doorway, absolutely dwarfing Kitty Pryde. So good. And then he gets into a fight. He's fighting the X-Men, and Kitty Pryde is like begging him to stop so that he doesn't kill anyone. And he like his metal face comes down, and he has the absolutely fucking raw line of "Am I finally dead?" Oh my god! Like this is the kind of mental break that I want to see with a return from the dead. You know?
Full agree. That moment killed me. I was like, "Oh my god, dude, that's not cool." My metal man.
What? The metal man. Oh my goodness. But how did you feel about the return of Colossus?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I don't want to say the issue's not about it because they do hear like, oh, you know, they might be testing with mutant, you know,
right,
like DNA and stuff. But like the issue really isn't about it. Like we get there in kind of a weird way, if that makes sense. Like Kitty Pryde's kind of just like fucking around. Like it's a little bit of a weird getting there. The actual scenes, like once we do get to Colossus, are pretty good.
But it's unfortunately only like 5 pages.
Yeah. And like we don't obviously get the actual like resurrection here, which obviously, you know,
does hurt.
But yeah, I like the moments there a lot. The line's very raw at the end. But yeah, I think it's a good solid resurrection at the end of the day. Like it's solid, you know? It's a good moment to see him back there. If you're not expecting it, I can't remember if is it foreshadowed on the cover or anything? I can't remember. I don't think he's on the cover.
No, it's got I think Morph on the cover.
Yeah, so I bet it was a really cool moment if you're reading it like as it came out, which is always something I've only mentioned for a couple of them, but it's something I've thought about for all of them is like, what is this if you're reading it? And I feel like this was another one a lot like Jean Grey, where it's like I feel like if you were actually reading this, it'd be really freaking cool. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is kind of middle of the pack for me. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel that too. I think that it is unfortunate that this doesn't really have a like big. It's tough when it's not about them being resurrected or about them around the resurrection. So I think that this is either Welcome Back or like bottom of Welcome Back.
I think bottom
or
of
top
Back
of
is kind of what I was thinking.
Back. Yeah. Because again, it does a really good job with that reveal of being back. But I think that it unfortunately and doesn't have the room in this issue
at the end. You know, you get which I think helps. It's a nice thing to like right off the bat, be like, yeah, this is gonna matter. Like he's not just gonna be
super duper cool.
It's gonna matter. Yeah. But next up, we're gonna talk about New Avengers issue 26, which is Hawkeye coming back. So we kind of start with him pretty much already back, and he goes to talk to Doctor Strange after he actually finds a flyer of himself being dead, or I guess a newspaper. They don't put out flyers of dead people. A newspaper. He leaves behind his stuff. He goes to talk to Doctor Strange. Makes it clear that he's going to be going after Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, and then he goes. Yeah.
Apparently twice.
Notably twice. Yeah, exactly. Notably twice. Which feels really important. And so he goes to where she was like kind of last seen. And as he helps a woman whose purse was stolen from her, he actually finds out that this is Wanda. And she's kind of letting him stay there and helping him. And they have actually a like romantic fling thing.
Yeah, they
because
sleep
he's
together.
like, I guess he realizes that she doesn't have her like
her
memories or anything. Yeah. He asks her about like the Avengers and about, you know, mutants and all of that, and she doesn't seem to know anything. So he like, I guess is just like, oh well, she doesn't know, so it's okay. And then he has like a romantic fling with her, and that's kind of a that's a little weird. Not really knowing what's going on with Wanda is a little weird for this. I do like on the front end the like heaviness that him being back comes with when he like sees the newspaper and when he's talking with Doctor Strange. Like I think there's a good heaviness to him being back and him having died there. Like the way they talk about what Wanda did and like the events, it feels a lot more like a real life tragedy than the way comic book tragedies typically feel, you know? Like it felt very heavy, and I like that. But then the back half, once he actually like gets to Wanda, was a little rough. But yeah, anyway, you go.
Yeah, I found Clint himself like a little hand wavy about it. Like he seems much more concerned about Wanda, and I think the fact that he clearly has like conflicted feelings over this leads to a not very directed emotion for it, if that makes sense. Like
That's fair. That's right.
It was like, is he going to find her so he can try to help her, or is he trying to get revenge? And I don't think that he knows.
The revenge vibe.
I don't know. I feel like it was a little soft.
Book, I got the revenge vibe from the front half of the book. But you could be right.
Sure.
Maybe
sure.
I just went in with that.
You know, like, readers may vary. But yeah, I found it to be a little. It reminded me a bit of the Superman thing where he's back and it doesn't seem to have like. It almost feels like an inconvenience that he died. Like it doesn't feel like this is any more of an emotional reaction than if like I don't know, she had stolen his car, you know?
That's fair. I get a lot like once he actually meets Wanda, I think it gets
then
really
you get good emotion, but then it is weird in a whole different way.
I thought I don't know that you even get like you get some like conflict, but I don't know that you get like the emotions you'd want to get out of him on that end. Like it feels very weird at that point. I don't know what's going on with Wanda. I don't know if I'm supposed to know what's going on with Wanda. So that's weird. And like the fact that he's kind of just here and like that's a little off. It's a little bit of a weird issue.
It's a bit of a weird issue, and we also don't get his resurrection. So like you're really kind of dropped in just in the middle of it all, which, you know, it's number 26 in a series. I'm sure that there was some sort of build up happening. But this is like him back, and it feels like we missed something, you know?
Yeah.
This one I wasn't a huge fan of as a resurrection issue.
Me neither. Yeah,
I think would plop this one down and should have stayed dead, personally.
I agree with you. Yeah. My main compliment was simply that I liked the way that him and Doctor Strange talked about the events of what had happened with Wanda, but I think his actual resurrection was...
My big compliment is that I thought the art was gorgeous. Like, it had a really distinct look, which I quite enjoyed.
Like, it was something, again, that I just liked a lot more in the front half. Like, I liked the way that it felt in the front half, and then in the back half, it got much more, like, I think, conceptual when, like,
I really liked the conceptual, but I'm a goober like that.
That's fair. But do you want to talk to us about the most recent one on this book, actually?
Yeah, so this is from Hellfire Gala 2023. This is the Resurrection of Miss Marvel, who we also pick up with after she's been resurrected.
And who was dead for, like,
a week.
A month? 2 months?
Yeah, something like that. Which is what I wanted to lead with, because this one really hit me with, like, the rough writing side of it in terms of, like, resurrection. Like, we get a couple like really kind of logical things from her where she's like worried about how her parents feel about her being dead, and but so much of this gets hand waved away by like comic book magic where it's like, oh, it's okay, we'll modify your parents' memories, and also the memories that you have don't include you dying, so she doesn't even have to really reckon with that.
Yeah. Like, do you want to quickly just tell the people how she comes back to life here?
Oh, yeah. So Professor X had like downloaded her consciousness, essentially, and where did her body come from?
An egg.
Yes. And she because I could very clearly remember her like joke where she's like, "Don't tell me I came out of that egg." And
I was like, the picture. That's
did
the picture.
Did she come out of the egg? Yeah.
Egg.
So like so much of this is the most like editorial comic book resurrection that you can find. Like I know that there was a lot going on at the time about like trying to recategorize her as a mutant.
Yeah, it was it was like the Inhuman and mutant thing, but then they would get weirdly into her being Inhuman and mutant in this issue.
Yeah. And it all feels so like this is a death and resurrection that was meant to be forgotten.
Yeah. Like they barely even focused on it in the issue. Like they like go like, oh, happened. Okay, Krakoa stuff. You should be a proud mutant. Krakoa stuff. I was like, what is happening?
And I really feel like the kind of icing on the cake here was, oh, we'll just modify your parents' memories. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And like she doesn't have
It's
to
also
remember her own death? What the fuck?
I want to know if you felt the same as me. Did the X-Men feel like villains in this issue to you?
Yes.
Because they
Yeah.
did to me. It felt like they were like holding her hostage, trying to force her to be a spokesman for them. Like, I was like, this feels weirdly like when you're like with a villain and like they're acting like you can leave, but you know you can't leave. Like that was the vibe of this issue to me. And
Yeah.
I was like, it's weird.
It doesn't help that Scott's not the most charismatic person in the world.
It wasn't just Scott though. It was
No,
all
I actually
of them,
think
man.
that her interactions with Scott were the best of her interactions. But yeah, it was a weird issue. I think that she should have stayed dead for, at least another minute. Like in universe, I think it was like 3 days.
Were talking about, I think before, that people were like, I can't believe they're killing your office, but people were like, she's gonna be back immediately.
Yeah.
And they were, correct.
But like, I stand by that they should not have killed her off in Spider-Man. If you're gonna kill a character, commit.
Oh, full agree. But it's like you said, it feels like it was meant to not be remembered. So like killing her off in Spider-Man
somebody
and bringing her
else's
back.
book.
And, like, yeah.
Then even in this issue, she's like, "Oh, I died. What happened?" And they're like, "Talk to Spider-Man. He can tell you. We're not going to talk to you about it now." And I'm like, "Okay."
Again, why do they like anything she wanted? They were like, "No, fuck you."
Yeah,
it was weird. I was like, "Are the X-Men just villains now? What is happening?"
It was a weird one. Definitely the bottom of should have stayed dead.
Well, yeah, agreed.
We
but we're going to talk about the return of Donna Troy, and that is literally the name of the issue.
Yeah. The series,
even.
One. I think it's a couple issues.
Yeah, I think I believe you are correct.
We read issue 1.
So this kind of opens on the Rand Thanagarian War, which is always a great opening because then you're in for some convoluted bullshit. And we kind of go through this crazy sci-fi shit that basically boils down to Donna Troy is now Troya, a Titan sci-fi god, or sorry, Titan.
Yeah.
But she is dreaming of her memories as a teen Titan on Earth. The other Titans are kind of being like, nah, it's all chill.
She's like one of the space Titans.
Yes. She's like one of the like new seed, I believe is what they called it, and I believe there's 3 of them that are the new seed, which are like the newer Titans that they essentially created and aren't originally from the OG Titans.
Right.
And when one of them, her sister, is like being downgraded to no longer a Titan, Spartan, and like leading a battle and gets destroyed, and she kind of realizes that the Titans are not really on her side. She goes to help out her sister, ends up in a battle with the 3rd of the new seed, her brother, whose name I also cannot remember because again,
that one's long in Greek.
Yeah. And that's kind of what happens. It's again, we don't really get a resurrection here. I mean, she's like just back as a mythical Titan. This is such a fucking weird context for Donna Troy as a character.
Yeah. Like this is less so a resurrection and more so just a full reboot.
I was so fucking I was like, why is this like this is such a weird thing to do with Donna Troy.
Yeah.
Of all like I don't get it.
Like leave her alone.
I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, this was wild to read because it's like all brand new lore to the DC universe. And
aside from the Rand Thanagarian.
Right, but all of the Donna stuff is all like brand new lore that I don't think it does a good job of like investing you in. No. I think that they should have leaned a lot more heavily.
I like Spartan.
I liked Spartan too. Yeah. I think they should have leaned a lot more heavily into her like dreams and flashbacks and stuff because they do that more at the front of the book. And I feel like if we were more focused on her trying to solve this problem, it would feel like it was more connected. It would feel more like we were building up to like a cool resurrection where her friend, because she's like looking for her friends. And I think that even could be cool in the context because I think this is another reality punch one, isn't it? Didn't it stem from that too?
I don't know.
I don't totally
That
know
feels
either,
like
but
it could be correct.
I think it's
She
another one of
was,
those.
yeah. I was gonna say she was actually, but that's why, like, so was Jason. So I was gonna say she was
Yeah,
actually dead, but so was Jason. So that's
yeah.
actually not a
Um,
useful thing to say.
but I think that it could have been a really cool thing to have her kind of come back to a world that she doesn't recognize,
Yeah.
and she's like got these kind of two sets of memories. Uh, but instead, it's so focused on this brand new world that it literally feels like reading someone's like original work instead of reading.
And it feels like picking up in
Yeah,
the middle of somebody's original work. Like, it's
exactly.
so, there's just so much lore that we don't know. It's very weird. I
Mhm.
will say, it's a cool costume.
Oh yeah, I love the Troya costume with all the stars and shit. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I like that. Good
Yeah,
points for that. Points for that.
good. Not enough points to take it out of should have stayed dead though, in my opinion.
The funny thing is, my brain was just like, and I'm not actually gonna make this point because we can't do it, but like my brain was like, I don't think Donna should have stayed dead though, and this did wreck my day.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No,
I
no, but
do
I do think this should be in the
she
bottom
is
tier.
better than Miss Marvel, though.
I agree. I agree with
Yeah.
you. Because it wasn't, at least it wasn't like a hand wavy. This
Right.
barely matters.
Yeah.
Please pretend this didn't happen.
It
Type
matters
of thing.
too much.
Yeah, yeah. But take us 2 hour. Yeah, it got its own series called The Return of Donna Troy, which I believe is Donna Troy's only solo series ever.
Oh. Ugh. It's all right. She's great in Titans now, and that's what matters.
She's the Titans character.
Yeah.
I don't think we did this on pod. We went over it though. Donna Troy's been in the most issues of Teen Titans / Titans of any character. So,
super cool.
Donna Troy. Yeah.
But our final resurrection here is that of Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow, in Green Arrow #1 from the 2001 series. I don't remember what is wrong with Ollie here, and this issue is another one of those big reveal ones. This is the third of 3 amazing like reveals, I think. Do you remember what's going on with Ollie?
Do you mean like why he's dead?
Yeah. Is this a time travel one?
No. Metropolis bomb. Go boom boom. Oliver didn't want his arm removed from Superman to save him. Then Parallax, before he sacrifices himself to save Universe, plucks Ollie out of dead and says, "You alive now."
Iconic, thank you. None of that is in this first issue.
The Oliver thing is the Parallax thing's shown. You see Parallax at the very beginning of this issue around Oliver's grave.
Oh shit, you're right. But like the like why it's happening, I don't think is
no. Like, yeah. You don't get much there.
But so this issue is essentially going through the people who love Oliver Queen and who Oliver Queen loves, and kind of looking at their life without Ollie. And then at the very end, you have the big Ollie reveal in his like mountain man look. So it's another one that's not like focused on his resurrection, but is instead like building up to him coming back. Which is tough on a resurrection side of things, but it's really well written in my opinion. Like
I agree. I like a lot of the character work here a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you get a really good mix of like modern time journal entry style captioning and then really touching flashbacks. And I think that did such a good job of setting the emotional stakes for Ollie coming back, especially because none of these characters know that he's back, obviously. So you're getting this happening, and then you get his, resurrection when he shows up on that final page. And it really does feel like it was all building up to this. So even though the issue isn't about his resurrection, it's a little bit akin to the Superman one, where it focuses a lot on the like ramifications of him being gone, and it does a really good job of that. How did you feel?
I'm gonna agree with a lot of what you said there. I really like the build up to it. We kind of get the like hint of Parallax being what brought him back at the beginning, but we don't get a lot of his actual resurrection. I do think his method of resurrection is weird. Like Parallax Hal just like popping down before he does a big sacrifice himself moment, just be like, just quickly before I die, I'm gonna make sure I bring my friend back to life.
Right.
Is a little much comic book convoluted. I like a lot
editorial.
Of the yeah, absolutely. Or like at least a little retconny where it's like, okay, we're gonna pretend he did this before he, killed himself. But yeah, I think the rough thing to me is I feel like Connor Hawke got the most of the like space, and I thought he had the weakest character
That's
work
fair.
compared to
Yeah,
Roy
yeah,
and
yeah.
Dinah, who I thought had
Mhm.
stronger stuff
Really
going
good
on.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, his actual like moment at the end is a really cool like little splash.
Mhm.
So yeah, I thought this was really solid. I thought it was a good issue. I thought this was a very good issue and a good resurrection, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Where would you like to put it?
I feel very similarly about the resurrection. The issues are
Mhm.
very like polarized, but about the resurrection, I feel like I feel very similar to Colossus's. You know, where it's like
Yeah,
he gets that good moment, but like in
exactly.
Colossus, we don't really know what brought him back. With Ollie's, we know it's not great, but the issue's great. So I feel like that kind of
Yeah,
evens it out to being very similar to Colossus, in my
yeah.
opinion.
I was gonna agree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay,
Let's pop him above Colossus. And
cool.
that's gonna be our list there. Jay, do you want
Yeah.
to read
Do you have any
through?
quickly before we?
Oh,
Yeah. Do you
oh.
have any adjustment ideas? Do you have any? You know,
Um,
does anything feel incorrect to you now that we've slotted everything in?
Honestly, my only one would be I feel like Damien is a little better than Superman, but like with the cultural context of Superman coming back, it does get that leg up. That's the
Yeah,
only one that I
Damien
feel a little
is
iffy
such
on.
a hard one to place. I feel like Damien's is weird in a way. You know, because like
Hmm.
looking at it as a whole too. Like I feel like Damien's as like a like as a resurrection. It's like did we need Damien? You know,
Yeah,
to like
he's another one kind of like Miss Marvel, where it's like, okay, are we supposed to remember that Damien died?
yeah.
Like it
Whereas
felt like
like
it was just
yeah,
one part of a larger story that wasn't Damien's
exactly.
story.
Whereas Superman, like, it really felt like a bit like he died, a bunch of stuff happened, and like while it's really tight, because somewhat because of the 4 issue a month thing, a
Yeah,
lot happens. Like all these characters come in, and it actually feels like he's coming back to something. Whereas Damien
that is
like
fair.
comes back to a loving family, which like sounds shitty that I'm like saying that as a bad thing, but from a storytelling standpoint, that's a bad thing. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. No, yeah,
Um
I feel pretty good about the list as it stands.
okay,
Is there
cool.
anything
Do
that
you
you
want to
would want to change?
no. Do you want to start taking
Yeah,
us through
so
this?
starting off in Act of God here, we have three of the best reveal resurrections in all
Reveals.
of comic books. With the important commonality that you pointed out, where it's like this is a fundamental change for the character. Uh,
Yeah,
this is Jason Todd, this is Bucky Barnes, and this is Elektra.
yeah. I that I feel like is so. I feel like most people will have those three in their top tier.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
They're just so good. Then we jump to Better Than Ever, and at the top of Better Than Ever, we have Wally West, who came back in Rebirth, and then we have Nightcrawler up
yeah,
next, who I have to actually remember what he came. Amazing X-Men. I was like,
yes.
it's
So many
not a
adjectives.
usual X-Men adjective. Amazing X-Men #1.
Yeah, in our welcome back tier, we have Superman from Action Comics 689. We have Damien from Robin Rises Alpha #1. We have Oliver Queen from Green Arrow #1. And we have Colossus from Astonishing X-Men #4.
And then in welcome back, we have Shredder from TMNT issue 21, and we have Jean Grey from Avengers 263.
Yeah, and the only one who's here to ruin our day here is Johnny Storm from
Which was
Fantastic Four
correct.
#600. Yeah. I
Like
think he
to
would
his
like to be
character.
in that tier.
Yeah, like he's like, yeah, I'm here to wreck your day.
Hickman
Uh,
wrote this one. Jonathan Hickman wrote that most of that issue, and he
yeah,
did
yeah.
such a good job with Johnny. Oh my god!
Oh yeah, absolutely. But then in Should Have Stayed Dead, we lead off with
Hawkeye,
Hawkeye. I'm trying to find the issue and just scrolling
Hawkeye
very
from New Avengers
Uh,
26.
thank you. New Avengers
Yep.
26. Then we have Donna Troy from The Return of Donna Troy, #1. And then finally we have Miss Marvel from
The
a very
Hellfire
annoying
Gala
title. Yeah, thank
2023.
you. Thank you. Yeah, that's our list. Do you agree, disagree? What is your favorite comic book resurrection? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you want
And
us to
who
do
do you
another
think they
part,
should
comment.
kill?
Oh, yeah, who should they kill?
Who do they
And
kill?
who is dead should come back. Should it be Gwen Stacy like she is, or should it have been Uncle Ben? I think it should have been Uncle Ben.
Just give me Alfred back, please.
Yeah. But so if you want to see us do another part, let us know either by comment or message or something. Let us know other resurrections we can cover. I know I'm gonna have Katie read the other Shredder resurrection from IDW. That'll be in part 2 if we do.
Are there more worms?
There are no worms in that
then
one.
I'm putting my foot down.
Potentially equally, not equal, probably not equally weird because it's more normal for comics, but it's weird. In any case, I don't think we have anything else to say, right, Katie? We get to.
I think we're rocking and rolling.
That's the video. See you next week, Comic Geeks.